Welcome back to part 2 of 2, Living the Way with Pastor Eric Peoples here at Legacy Church in Farmington, Connecticut. I'm Colleen Kim, here today with Dr. Eric Peoples, author of Finishing Strong. So good to have you here.
It's a joy to be with you too, Dr. Colleen, and I can't wait for us to get inside of actually your brilliance about what you know about finishing strong, because it is really good.
Yeah, let's talk about it a little bit. Last time, we left off on the idea about boundary lines. King David, Psalm 16:6, that the boundary lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. Surely I have a delightful inheritance. Let's talk about boundaries. This is a hot topic today.
It really is. And what has been really interesting for me as I've just continued to dig deeper into this, thinking about Psalm 16, he starts off with King David. He's got all these responsibilities. He's got all these things going on. The kingdom is under pressure. His life is under pressure. He starts off by saying, "Keep me safe, O God, for I have come to you for refuge." And, I think that when we consider first and foremost, where are we going to, or where are we finding refuge? And for David to then say, of course, later down, a couple of verses later, that the boundary lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. He's basically saying, I'm taking refuge in this place. This is the area where I'm actually going to live. And he makes some really powerful declarations. Things like, Lord, you're my master. Like, wait a second. For some of us, we're like, I'm my own boss. No one, I'm the boss of me.
Right.
But his declaration, when you say Lord, is recognizing not small L, big L, Lord, God, that you are the one who has put me here, and the boundary lines have fallen in pleasant places. And I'm really curious, when we consider, well, what does that even mean as far as pleasant places?
Right.
As far as this is a line and don't cross it, as opposed to recognizing that, what does that look like when it comes to pleasant places and places of rest? How do we get there? How do we define that? I'm just really curious your thoughts on that.
I think that these boundary lines, when we hear the word boundaries, sometimes that has a negative connotation to it. We're in the throes of FIFA right now, World Cup, and there's a lot of yellow cards being given, and players are being thrown out of the game. They've crossed boundaries. There are specific boundaries that we have, not just in sports and soccer, but in our lives. And when we feel like those have fallen in pleasant places, that's something to really dig into. Because for us, when we work, when we live, when we eat, when we, play, all these things that we do every single day, there are some natural boundaries. And sometimes those are imposed upon us even by our own bodies. We can't go any further in this activity anymore. Our bodies are clapping back. They're saying, you've gone too far, and now you're going to go into a timeout. You're going into the penalty box.
Yeah.
You're going to take a rest. But for King David, he was in that area of striving and fighting against enemies. And in that context, he was exiled. He was running, and he was waiting years to take the throne. And yet he declared that these boundaries have fallen in pleasant places. So it takes some level of emotional intelligence and maturity to get there, and discernment and awareness from a Christian perspective to say, God, what is before me is a gift for me, and it's not a penalty. It's not truly a timeout. This is my gift of rest, rejuvenation, restoration, and that's where those rhythms can be rediscovered. What do you think?
That's really good. Back in the day when I was working with a younger crowd, with youth and with even young adults, we would have a conversation about, rules or guidelines, and those were annoying. Well, what rules bother you? And they would say, this thing or that thing, and my parents or, school. And then what I would do is I would usually start that conversation on a basketball court, and we'd say, hey, I'd say, hey, let's play. And so, everyone starts playing, and not before long, they would stop and they would say, hey, what are we playing up to?
Mm.
And I would go, it doesn't matter. Let's just keep playing.
Okay.
And they'd continue to play. And then 10, 15 minutes later, they'd go, hey, no, like we've got to have a number. Like, what are we playing to?
Yeah.
I go, oh, wait, you do like rules. You do like boundaries. You do like to know where the line is.
Mm-hmm.
And David is, saying in this, and even what you're talking about is David saying, hey, wait, this inheritance is good. This is, these boundary lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. Now, the interesting part, his reference, of course, we talked about last time, is like to the Levitical provision that God made of them crossing to the promised land, which was, I'll be your inheritance. I'll be your portion. Mm-hmm. And so that requires faith. That requires a confidence that, well, you're going to take care of me. And so when our bodies are letting us know that we haven't been taking care of ourselves,
mm-hmm.
Some would say, well, just step on the gas. My body isn't telling me what to do. Well, you can only get one earth suit.
Right.
And, when you start crashing through the quitting points, oftentimes what we find ourselves is in a heap of trouble.
Yes.
And so mentally, emotionally, physically,
yep.
I'm wondering, when do, the listener here, when do you get to a place in your life where you say, wait a second, wait, Lord, would you help me understand what the boundary lines look like for me, for my energy, for my family, for my body? And I think those are sacred considerations as opposed to, well, I just do what I do. Because if we're really saying as believers, that this life we live, this one life we live, how are we going to live a life that counts, live a life that matters? And he says this in verse 7, he says, I will bless the Lord who guides me. Even at night, my heart instructs me. It's interesting. In verse 8, he says, I know the Lord's always with me. I will not be shaken. And just for he is right beside me.
Mm. And
I just, the idea of the Lord being there with us as these lines are discovered, I think it can be daunting. What are your thoughts about just that discovery zone of boundaries and the Lord showing it? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes. Well, as you're speaking, I'm thinking about your gifting and so many different areas. You also are an executive coach. Mm. And to live in community or to have a coach on your side is so important as we are considering where those boundary lines are for us and how to proactively kind of reach those boundary lines in a way that they are pleasant. We know that as Christians, we're relying on God for our capacity, but many times do we actually in the day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month, even year-to-year analysis, new year comes and people are like, I've got some new resolutions. Are we weighing in? These are good action items for our listeners today.
Yeah, very good.
To say, A, are you living in community with people who are indeed asking these questions for you? B, if you're not, do you have a coach? Do you have somebody in your life that you can trust from a Christian, godly perspective to guide you with these questions and answers? Mm-hmm. And then 3, individually, are you taking the time on a regular basis, baking this into your calendar to say, can I keep the appointment with myself? That was part of your message on Sunday. Yeah. And if you can keep an appointment with yourself, you're one step closer to managing.
That's excellent.
Those boundary lines and those guidelines and the margin in your life.
Yeah, I encourage the listener to don't be afraid of what you discover about yourself. Because when you realize that the boundary lines that the Lord is speaking to you actually what he says is pleasant can sometimes feel restrictive.
Yes.
But when we begin to believe, wait, Lord, you are right here beside me, and I'm going to learn, right? That invitation Jesus makes, he says, come unto me, all who are weary and heavy laden. Oftentimes, the only time we consider managing the margins of these moments is when we're exhausted. And so instead of reflecting from a place of rest, it's recovery. It's got to be this restorative moment. It's the lights are flashing. Yeah, the tank is on empty, lights on.
Yes.
So I think it's really good with what you shared, because if especially being in community, the context of community, I realized that I had to make a break from the circles I was in, because what we celebrate in the circles was really running full throttle all times. And so you can't give what you don't have.
Yeah.
And that's not what the Lord requires. It's not. It's if when you start talking about it, just even Psalm 23. Wait, you've called me to lie down beside still waters. It doesn't mean a swamp or still, it's water. If you've ever been around water that moves so slow, it looks like it's still. That's the beauty of the moment that we're invited into. And I just want to encourage, like the listener, man, what would it look like to live from a place from the overflow and abundance and not lack?
We're going to end it right there today. There is so much for you to take away and to apply today from our talk together. Why don't you take an inventory today? Ask yourself, go into that place of rest before it's forced upon you. Take it as your gift to say, where is my margin? Where is my energy? How am I resting? How am I rejuvenating? How am I restoring before the recovery? Thanks so much for joining us today. Dr. Eric Peoples, author of Finishing Strong. It's been a pleasure. We'll see you next time here at Legacy Church. Come visit us, 15 Executive Drive, Farmington, Connecticut. We'll see you soon.